UFC 299 is only what? A few hours away. I'm going to go through this card. I'm going to make some predictions for you guys. But man, how about Francis Ngannou? Oh man, that was hard to watch last night. He got knocked down in the first round. He got knocked down again in the second round. And then I don't think he was ever fully back. Because man, Anthony Joshua landed that right hand super flush and just put his lights out. Hard to watch for anyone who is a Francis Ngannou fan. I mean, Anthony Joshua has got to be the worst possible matchup there is for Francis Ngannou. AJ is fast, he's big, he's strong, and he's got one-hitter quitter punch power, man. So, all right, let's start breaking down some of these fights. I'm going to start with Michel Pereira versus Michael Olajocek. I like Michael Pereira in this fight. Pereira has won 6 fights in a row. Olajocek has lost to some guys like Tanner Boser, like not very good guys. I like Michael Pereira as long as Pereira doesn't do his dumb shit and gas out in the first 5 minutes. You know, I don't think this fight's going to be like a one-round finish type of fight, but I like Pereira to get the W, and I think he's going to slowly make his way towards that top 15 at 185 pounds. I mean, he's won 6 fights in a row. If he wins in this fight, he's going to get a really big step up in competition at 185 pounds. So I like Michel Pereira to win this fight. Next up, we got Philip Lins versus Ion Cutelaba. Cutelaba is like a human punching bag, man. He is just stacking up losses. He's a kill or be killed kind of guy. He won his last fight, but he lost like 5 out of 6 before that with a draw sprinkled in there. Ion Cutelaba, man. Philip Lins isn't like a super dangerous guy, but I think someone's going to get slept in this fight for sure. Someone's getting KO'd 100%. And I think Philip Lins is going to win this fight. Ion Cutelaba, from a betting perspective, like I would stay away from this fight for sure. Because Ion Cutelaba has wins over guys like Khalil Roundtree. And Roundtree, you've seen what he's done lately. He's a really good fighter. And who knows, he kind of storms forward, throws a bunch of crazy shots, and he could clip Lins and end the fight. I don't love that. Let's see what the bookies are saying. Yeah, it's pretty much an even. Cuntelaba's a -125 favorite. So there's not a lot of juice either way on that fight. So I'm staying away from that fight. It'll be fun to watch. Someone's going to get smoked. And then we move up the card. Pedro Munoz versus Kyler Phillips. Kyler Phillips is in the prime of his career. 11-2. The dude's super good. He's only 28 years old. I really, really like Kyler Phillips, man. He's really, really good. He's won, what, 6 out of his last 7 fights. And Pedro Munoz is a super tough guy. He's one of the toughest guys in the UFC. I look for this fight to go the distance, 100%. So that's a prop bet that I like, because Pedro Munoz, like, he's never, like, gets finished at all whatsoever. Pedro Munoz, 10-8 in the UFC with 2 no contests. Losses, all 8 losses, 100% decisions. So if he loses this fight, it's going to be a decision. If he wins this fight, it's probably going to be a decision. That's a really good bet to make the Kyler Phillips, Pedro Munoz to go the distance. You're probably not going to get super juicy odds. But Kyler Phillips is a lot younger, almost 10 years younger than Pedro Munoz. I like Pedro Munoz. He's a good fighter. He lost to Marlon Vera. He beat Chris Gutierrez, which was a good win. That no contest with that eye poke for Sean O'Malley. Then he lost back-to-back fights to Dominic Cruz and Jose Aldo. So I don't see any way he beats Kyler Phillips in this fight at all. So I like Kyler Phillips to beat Pedro Munoz in this fight, probably by decision. Kyler Phillips by decision is also a good bet. He probably wins like a 29-28. 30-27 decision. So that's a good bet too. Then we move on to a 155-pound bout between Mateusz Gamrot and RDA. This is going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. They're very similar style-wise. This is a 3 5-minute round fight. Gamrot, he's won 4 out of his last 5. RDA has pretty much been fighting at welterweight for the last couple years. He's 3-5 in his last 5 fights. But pretty much everyone thinks that Gamrot's going to win this fight. He's a big favorite, minus 440. I wouldn't lay the juice on that. Minus 440 is a lot of juice to be paying. RDA is a crafty veteran. Gamrot should win this fight pretty easily, like a 29-28 decision. This is another fight I think goes to the decision. Both these guys don't have a ton of power, but they're both pretty decent grapplers. So I think a lot of this fight is going to be in the clinch and on the ground. I don't think there's going to be a kickboxing fight, but I like Mateusz Gamrot to win this fight via decision. That's another good fight, betting this Dos Anjos Gamrot fight to go to the decision. So this is pretty much Rafael Dos Anjos' last chance to make a run at 155 pounds. He's just too small to be competitive at 170 pounds. These wrestlers he can take him down or whatever, and they just pretty much hold him there. He can't really get up. RDA, I mean, he's a great fighter. He's super old, though, 39 years old. And you see guys that are, over 35, 36, in these 155-pound, 170-pound divisions, guys. It doesn't really end well. That's why the odds are so high. Dos Anjos is 39. Gamrot is not close to that. So it's going to be tough sledding for him. RDA lost his last fight against Vicente Luque. Then he had a win against Brian Barberena, who's not super great. And then he lost to Fiziev by that left hook. That was actually a pretty competitive fight, that Rafael Fiziev-Dos Anjos fight. And Fiziev is more of a kickboxer, so RDA is pretty good on the ground, so they kind of mitigated some of their, advantages in that fight. But I like Mateusz Gamrot to win a decision over Rafael Dos Anjos. The prelims are super stacked too, guys, so make sure you tune in early for these fights. They're going to be a lot of fun. A lot of older guys in the prelims. All right, up the card, we have Maycee Barber versus Katlyn Chookagian, who's going by her husband Sermanyara's last name now. So she's a little bit older too. She's been dealing with some stuff. She was saying in interviews that she had some miscarriages when she was trying to get pregnant, and that does a number on your body. So she wanted to kind of get away from thinking about having a kid to come back to fighting. But she's 35 years old. She just turned 35 in December, but she's a little bit older. Maycee Barber is literally 10 years younger than her. So we'll see if Katlyn Chookagian can keep up pace with the younger fighter. She hasn't fought in a really long time. So she hasn't fought since 2022 in October. So, it's been a long time since Katlyn has fought. She lost to Mason Fiorot, and then she had 2 wins over Amanda Ribas and Jennifer Maia before that, but they were both in, 2022. So she fought 3 times in 2022. Didn't fight at all in 2023, and this is her first fight of 2024. 11-5 in the UFC. I like Maycee Barber in this fight, man. She's got the youth. She's a really good, talented fighter. She's won her last, 5 fights in a row. Wins over Miranda Maverick, Jessica Ai, De La Rosa, Andrea Lee, Amanda Ribas. I mean, Maycee Barber is probably going to win this fight. Probably by decision. Let's check out her last 4 fights. Yeah, she won by ground and pound, and then the other 4 wins, all by decision. 2 split decisions. So this fight's probably going to go to decision as well. Let's see what Vegas thinks of this fight. Yeah, it's a little closer than I thought. Minus 210 for Maycee Barber. That's not bad odds on her, especially if you want to parlay her with another fight you like. So I don't hate Maycee Barber at minus 210. That's a solid bet. And in this bet, you could, parlay it. Maycee Barber is a good parlay piece, I think, with some other fighters on this card. Some of the bigger favorites, you can go with Maycee Barber maybe. But on this card, there's not a ton of humongous favorites, guys. There's not a monster favorite, really, on the main card. These fights are pretty close. All right, let's move up to the card to the main event of the prelims. We have Curtis Blades versus Jailton Almeida in the heavyweight division. The number 6 guy versus the number 7 guy. Jailton Almeida has looked really good as of late. Almeida's a beast, man. He's a monster on the ground, dude. Monster. I mean, the dude just doesn't lose, man. He just doesn't lose. He hasn't lost. How many wins in this? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 wins in a row? Jesus Christ, man. 6-0 in the UFC. He's got 1 win on the Contender Series. God damn. He's got wins over Rosenstrike, Derek Lewis, some other bums in the heavyweight division. So this is a big step up in competition, and he wins this fight. He's going to get a huge fight after this. But Curtis Blaydes is a really good wrestler, but he doesn't ever wrestle. Curtis Blaydes has a super low IQ when it comes to the UFC fights, man. He's a dipshit. I mean, even listening to him talk, the dude he's the opposite of cerebral. He's a pretty big dipshit. And, like, he got into a striking match with Pavlovich. Like, dude, what the fuck are you doing, man? Just wrestle him. I don't understand why that fight was so stupid. Watching that was so frustrating to watch Curtis Blaydes, because he landed a couple shots on Pavlovich early in the fight, and then he was like, oh, I'm going to knock this dude out, so I'm just going to keep blasting away. And then he got smoked by Pavlovich and finished in the fight. So, oh, man, I just don't think Curtis Blaydes' fight IQ is good enough to win a fight like this. I like Jailton Almeida to get the W here, probably by submission. But Curtis Blaydes has got a lot of power. It's 3 5-minute rounds at the heavyweight division. Jailton Almeida 6-0 in the UFC, super tough. The dude's a fucking animal, man. He submits the shit out of people. Let's see. Does he have all finishes in the UFC? Let's check that out real quick. Jailton Almeida versus Curtis Blaydes. Yeah, he's 6-0 in the UFC, 2 knockouts, 3 submissions, and 1 decision. So he's got a variety. He's got the power to knock dudes out, but he's also super good on the ground. So I could see him hurting Curtis Blaydes on the feet, going for a submission. So I wouldn't pick submission or by TKO. If you want to bet this fight, bet it by not going the distance. I think that's the best bet to make in this fight. Almeida 6-0 in the UFC. Curtis Blaydes is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. His fight IQ is super low. I like Jailton Almeida, -115. That's a good parlay piece with Macy Barber. You'll get plus odds if you bet those 2 fights. I like Jailton Almeida to win this fight. Curtis Blaydes, his fight IQ, dude, he just fights like an absolute idiot, man. In that fight with Sergey Pavlovich, I was just like, dude, what the fuck are you doing, man? Why? Like, why are you trying to get in a stand-up fight with Pavlovich? What are you doing that for? There's no reason to get in a stand-up fight with Sergey Pavlovich. All right, let's move up the card to the main card of UFC 299. We're kicking things off with Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. This is going to be a really, really good fight. Petr Yan has lost 4 out of his last 5 fights. The dude needs a win bad. He desperately needs a win. And Song Yadong, on the flip side of that, has won 4 out of the last 5 fights. It's a pretty close fight. Petr Yan's coming in at -125. Song Yadong +105. So it's pretty much a coin flip fight, the Russian versus the Chinese fighter. It's going to be really, really good. Petr Yan's 31. Song Yadong is 26. But this fight's going to be super, super close, man. Song Yadong is really, really talented fighter. He's fighting out of Team Alpha Male. So he's got wins over Chris Gutierrez, Ricky Simone, Marlon Moraes. Everyone's got wins over him, and Julio Arce. This is a big, big step up in competition. The last time he stepped up in competition, he fought Corey Sandhagen and got TKO'd. He had that monster cut, and the fight was stopped. Corey Sandhagen was piecing him up on the feet. So I look for Petr Yan to use his boxing to get a W here. I like Petr Yan, especially at that -125. I like Petr Yan to win this fight, probably by decision. Petr Yan's boxing is really good. I don't think he wants to wrestle with Song Yadong. Petr Yan, when he got hurt against Sean O'Malley, kind of turned into a wrestler a little bit. I wouldn't recommend him doing that. Up the card, Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena. I like a lot of the favorites on this card, except this fight. Jack Della Maddalena made a lot of mistakes in that last fight. I was like, what the heck is he doing, man? He made a lot. There was a late replacement in that fight, and he fought that, I forget the guy's name, but there was a lot of mistakes because he didn't end up fighting Kevin. The fight, Basil Hayfitz, that's the fight. It was like he fought really bad in that fight against Basil, man. He made a lot of really big mistakes on the ground. Terrible. He was really bad on the ground in that fight. And Gilbert Burns, his jiu-jitsu is so good. So if he fights like he fought that Basil Hayfitz guy, that big, strong wrestler, he made a lot of stupid-ass mistakes when he was getting taken down. And, dude, Gilbert Burns gets a hold of your neck. You're toast, man. I like Gilbert Burns to win this fight. Jack Della Maddalena, the last 2 fights, 2 split decisions. I mean, he doesn't have that big poster win. If he beats Gilbert Burns, that's going to be huge for him. But Rodriguez, Emaev, Danny Roberts, and Randy Brown, not necessarily, and Kevin Holland and Basil Hayfitz, not the biggest names. And Kevin Holland is like just a striker, man. He doesn't really want to wrestle too much. That was a split decision that could have went either way. But I like Gilbert Burns to surprise people in this fight and get the W by decision, I think, or by submission. The Gilbert Burns win by submission, there's a lot of good juice there. I think Jack Della Maddalena can make a mistake. And Gilbert Burns, man, he's like a triple degree black belt or some shit. So, man, I don't know. Then we have Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page. This is going to be fireworks from the get-go. Someone's getting finished in this fight. There's no way in hell that this fight between Michael Venom Page and Kevin Holland goes the distance. But, man, Michael Venom Page is older than I thought he was. 36, guys. He'll be 37 in a couple weeks. He's an older guy, man. 37, making his UFC debut. Kevin Holland's not a spring chicken either at 31, but 31 and 37, there's a huge difference in the age there. So, Vegas has this a pretty much even fight, minus 135 for Kevin Holland, plus 115 for Michael Venom Page. Michael Venom Page, this is going to be one of the best fighters he's fought in a long time. He lost that decision in bare knuckle boxing to Mike Perry. He lost to Logan Storley by decision in Bellator. And then he rattled off a bunch of wins in a row at Bellator. Douglas Lima, Doug Anderson, Ross Houston, Anzia, and Melio. So he's 17-2 in Bellator. The dude's a really good fighter. Stylistically, I don't know, he could probably win this fight because Kevin Holland had some trouble with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And Michael Venom Page and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson have a very similar karate style. So we'll see how Kevin Holland deals with that. Kevin Holland has lost 3 of his last 5 fights. Michael Venom Page has won 4 out of his last 5. I like Kevin Holland in this fight, but I'm not betting. I would never bet on this fight at all whatsoever. I'm probably just going to step back as a fan. But Michael Venom Page by decision. Kevin Holland finds himself on the bad side of decisions a lot in his career. So I think Michael Venom Page by decision. He had some trouble with Wonderboy, and I think he's going to have the same amount of trouble with Michael Venom Page. But can Kevin Holland use his ground game? Because he's actually not too bad on the ground against Michael Venom Page. We'll see what happens. And then up the card to the co-main event. This is really interesting because it's a 5-round co-main event. Dustin Poirier versus Benoît Saint Denis. God, Benoît Saint Denis, he's just a big dude, man. He's fucking big. Even like Poirier was standing next to him. He's a pretty big 155er, but Benoît just looks so big. It's got to be tough for him making that 155-pound limit. Oh, my heart says Dustin Poirier, but my brain says Benoît Saint Denis. Let me know in the comments below who do you think is going to win this fight, Benoît Saint Denis or Dustin Poirier. Benoît Saint Denis, being a southpaw, likes to land those body kicks against orthodox fighters, but Dustin Poirier, being a southpaw as well, he's going to take that away from him a little bit. So a lot of the things, he loves the body kick out of southpaw. So I don't know if he's going to be able to use that. And he hasn't fought a lot of southpaws in his career. Poirier has fought McGregor a bunch of times. He's fought a bunch of southpaws. Whew, it's going to be close. I think Vegas has him as a pretty sizable favorite. Coming in at minus 220, he's a moderate favorite. Poirier has lost 2 out of his last 5 fights. I got to go with Benoît Saint Denis, man. He's younger. He's powerful. He's just gritty as fuck. He's got a good ground game, too. Poirier is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, so this is going to be a really good fight. Oh, man. If we get past the 3rd round, we don't know what Benoît Saint Denis' gas tank's going to be like. So betting on this fight, I would probably stay away from it because Benoît Saint Denis, co-main event, biggest fight of his career against a huge name like Dustin Poirier. We could see that adrenaline dump in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds versus Dustin Poirier. But I'm going Benoît Saint Denis to win this fight. He's just so strong. He's got so many ways to win. He's just so vicious, man. But this is a big step up in competition. We'll see what Dustin Poirier has left. He did get KO'd in his last fight, which concerns me for Dustin Poirier. I'm going with Benoît Saint Denis to get the W against one of my favorite fighters in Dustin Poirier. It's going to be a good fight. I love Benoît Saint Denis' style. I'm really curious how Benoît Saint Denis would stylistically match up with a guy like Islam Makhachev. Could Makhachev take him down and kind of grind him out like he does with other fighters? Because if Benoît Saint Denis goes in and he smokes Dustin Poirier, I think the UFC could give Benoît Saint Denis a title shot. I swear to God. You have Arman Tsarukyan versus Charles Oliveira. That fight could be a title eliminator, depending on how that goes. Or if, Arman Tsarukyan wins that fight, you have Tsarukyan versus Benoît Saint Denis against Islam. We have Benoît Saint Denis versus Arman Tsarukyan to see who plays and fights against Islam Makhachev. We'll see what happens. All right, guys. Then we move on to the main event. Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera. I watched the tape of the first fight. And, man, Sean was just kind of establishing dominance in that fight. He was really, really in control of the striking. He was in control of the distance. Vera kind of started to figure him out a little bit as the fight went forward a little bit. But that could be because of that perennial nerve kick. I like Sean O'Malley in this fight. I think Sean O'Malley, he's just a bigger fighter. He's got the reach advantage. I like Sean O'Malley to win this fight. Vera is a dog, though, man. His story about fighting for his family and his daughter is incredible. If we get into the 4th and 5th rounds, the tides could turn a little bit, and we could see Vera possibly take over in this fight. But I like Sean O'Malley to win this fight. So I'm going Sean O'Malley, Benoît Saint Denis, Michael Venom Page, Gilbert Burns, and Petr Yan to get W's in the main event. All right, guys, thanks for tuning into the live stream. Get ready for these fights. I'm going to see if I'll live stream during the card, but we'll see what happens. Thanks for tuning in. Peace! I can't get out.